Hey guys, thanks for joining me on this channel today. Today I'm a bit under the weather, so I'm at home, and actually it's quite snowy outside. I'm stuck at home. The kids are not at home, and it's just me at home, and I decided, you know what, why not make a new video to talk about how to thrift for film cameras. The number one thing to look out for, I would recommend that you ask them if they will sell you the cameras in bulk as a lot rather than individual cameras. And the reasoning is that oftentimes when they start separating all the cameras, they're going to cost you a lot more. But when they put it together, just tell them I'll take the whole bunch. Usually they want to get rid of them. So if you're willing to take all that they have, even including some undesirables, like for me personally, that would be the digital cameras, the old digital cameras, which I have no use for, then they will be willing to actually reduce the price for you, and you may actually end up with a much better bargain. Number two, don't focus too much on the outward appearances of the cameras. You have to be willing to look past the dirt and past the grime. Usually these cameras they've been sitting in people's basements and attics for ages, right? And so a lot of them come to the Goodwill store there, and they look cosmetically, they look like they're grimy and dirty, but you have to look past them. And case in point would be these two cameras here. So I have this camera here. When I saw it in the thrift store, and this one as well, when I saw these were dirty and grimy as they can be, and if I had not looked past them to actually look at what's more important, which I'm going to talk about next, I would be missing out on some great cameras, right? So you have to be willing to look past the dirt. My number three tip would be a practical one, which is check the terminals, your battery terminals, and make sure that they actually aren't corroded, because a lot of the time the previous owners would keep the old batteries in there, and they would leak out and corrode the terminals and make a whole big mess. And oftentimes you're gonna end up with cameras that do not function. And these cameras, they do cost quite a bit of money to fix, and it will not be worth it. So number one is take out the batteries if there are some batteries in there. Check the terminals, make sure that they're clean and they're not corroded. If it's corroded and the plates here are falling off, unless you're willing to invest the time and the effort to actually fix them, I wouldn't bother with them unless they're really a nice camera that you actually would like to have. My number four tip would be, if possible, travel with a set of batteries. You want to be able to test out the cameras that you see. I would say travel with a set of AA batteries, or even the CR2 batteries for cameras like this, which is the Canon EOS cameras. Some cameras also take the 123 type batteries, so I would invest in some of those batteries, just a couple of those, and just travel with them, because ultimately you want to make sure that it fires, that the shutter actually works, and also that if you're buying a camera like that with the electronics component, which is not this camera is not fully manual, it has the electronic component. These are beautiful cameras to have, but sometimes these components, the electronic components, they complicate things and they actually break. So you want to be able to test it out before you invest in it. So for a camera like this, you would test it out to make sure that the shutter actually fires, okay? and the sound, listen for it, and you also have to look out for the shutter as it opens in there as you fire it. Take apart the lens in the store. In this particular case, you would press this button down and you would spin this, twist it, and you're gonna take a look at the mirror. Make sure it's not broken or scratched out too much. If it's just dirt in there, you can't clean it up, okay? So I wouldn't be too stuck on those issues, right? And also the lens. So make sure that the lens is not looking defective or fungus. As fungus is one of the major issues that you would have with the lenses of these cameras. So look for fungus build up in the lens or haze, or because that would greatly reduce the value of your camera. A lot of the time, the lenses themselves actually would have a lot more value than the camera themselves. So even if the camera is broken, ask for a deal on the lenses. For film photography, the clarity of the image is all about the clarity of the glass that you put on the cameras themselves. Some of these renowned cameras, it's just because they have a really high, good quality glass, and so it's really about the glass, because apart from that, the mechanisms are all the same. The movements and the winding and the focus, and those are standard mechanisms. It's really the clarity of the glass that determines the quality of the image that you will get, right? So if you can get a good deal on some of these good lenses, some of the good lenses to look out for, in my opinion, would be the Olympus lenses. If you find an Olympus lens laying around somewhere there, just pick it up. Some of the stock lenses also are pretty good, like the Pentax branded lenses, the Canon branded lenses. I would say those are pretty good as well. Don't forget about the flash, okay? So if you can find some really decent flash, external flash units, please pick it up, because they come in quite handy. The beautiful thing about film photography is the dynamic range. But one thing I've found about film photography is that in the dark, the shadows get a bit muddy. So having a good flash that usually has a guide on the back that will guide you as to your camera settings and the distances that you must shoot these, and the film setting would be very handy. So it will actually make the difference between a really nice photo and a pretty crappy photo. So if you can find some good flashes out there at the thrift store, do pick them up. They come in quite handy. Watch out for the medium format cameras. A lot of the time you would find these folding cameras in the thrift stores. When I first started, I just saw these and I was just picking them up without really doing my research to really understand. Now, unless you are into collecting them just for collecting's sake, or displaying them for sentimental value, and really this video is not for you if that's what you're doing, right? But unless you're doing that, and then you actually want to pick up one of these cameras that actually works. The thing about these cameras is that some of them, like this one here, they were made to take 620 film, and unless you are willing to re-spool your film, your 120 film onto 620 spools, which I did in my previous video, so you can check it out. Unless you're willing to go in the dark room and do that, if you actually want to shoot with these, you make sure that they are 120, that they take 120 film. And the simple thing would be to check the back. Okay, so you open it, and for example, this camera here tells you right there they use 620 film. If you see a camera that looks anything like this, like a medium format camera, now it may be functional or not functional, but if you do see something like that and it's going for a decent price, do pick it up. Okay, just pick it up. If it's a really good price, that is, pick it up, because a lot of the time the value of those cameras is not just in the lenses, which I discussed before, but also in the fact that you can actually use them for parts. Okay, so later on, if you go on eBay, which I'm going to discuss how to shop on eBay as well for film cameras, you may be able to use some parts of it to fix your actual working cameras. And my final tip, and this one is more personal to me, it's not about the cameras per se, but it's about you, the collector. Is basically know when enough is enough, and to draw the line somewhere, because this hobby, I would say, can be quite addictive. If you get into it and you get so into it and so obsessed with it, you might just end up in a mode where you're just buying and ignoring other aspects of your life. And I speak from personal experience. I have had to draw the line somewhere. At some point you have to know when enough is enough, and that's a personal thing that you have to determine for yourself, right? So just have that balance is really my final tip. Is as you collect these things, think about your finances, think about where you are, think about your family's needs. I mean, don't just get into that mode and start buying things without considering your resources or those that depend on you. So collecting these things can be fun, but you have to think about that. So I'm hoping that that you found this useful. I'm hoping that for those of you who have interest in getting into film photography, that you will find these tips to help you to be on your way to actually start thrifting for film cameras. Now, like I said before, this is not really for those of you that want to collect film cameras for sentimental value, or for me, I collect film cameras that actually work, because I enjoy shooting with them a lot more than I enjoy just looking at them. So to each its own, or her own, I guess. But if you're really collecting for sentimental value, then the value of that item that you're collecting is really, I cannot put a value on that. So none of these tips will make sense to you, or they don't apply, right? But I'm hoping that you guys found this useful, and I wish you a wonderful day. I wish you a safe day, guys, and happy thrifting. Okay, take care, guys. Yeah, so that's the backyard today, and yeah, welcome to Alberta, Canada.